Good afternoon for everyone, or good evening, good morning, wherever you are, and welcome to this session about Teams policies. My name is Matti Paukkonen. I work as a modern work architect on Innofactor, which is a Nordic company. I'm also Office Apps and Services MVP, got my award on August, so quite new MVP. I'm also hosting a local user group called Teams Community Finland with couple of MVPs and people from Finland. I'm working with Microsoft 365, Microsoft Teams, SharePoint, security, and of course I'm from Finland. I'm a dark mode fan because we have dark mode, of course, almost 6 months in a year. And there you can find my social media channels, so you can follow me on Twitter, connect me on LinkedIn. I'm into networking. I also have a technical blog about things around Microsoft 365 ecosystem, and also a GitHub account where I will be publishing all the demos of today, and I have some example code as well there. Let's go right to the topic. So Teams policies, and I have stated there that policies are not all about control, so they are not a tool for evil IT guy to this kind of skip all the fun and good stuff. I would say it's more about helping organizations adoption strategy. For example, when you have your beginning of your Teams journey, you could actually use Teams policies, for example, limiting out creation of private channels. Private channels is a great feature, but there is a lot of kind of a misunderstanding around and how the private channels work. So you could actually use Teams policies to control those private channels. Can they be created? And later on, when you have your adoption in a correct phase, you have training to end users and guidance, then you enable it to your users. Teams apps is a huge thing if you think about Teams as an app platform. And I currently checked there was something like 750 apps in the Teams app catalog on Admin Center. And that might be quite confusing to users. So maybe it would be better to use Teams policies to kind of publish those apps to users which your organization is already using, and maybe block some others. But at the same time, thinking about kind of a lightweight process that when there's a business need or a user need for a certain app, you can enable it easily to the users. And that is also part of the adoption story, so you should have some kind of a guidance about those apps as well. And one huge thing about Teams policies is, of course, the Teams left rail personalization and personalization of the mobile app, which is really important. If you, again, think about Teams as a platform, you might have, for example, a finance application inside of your Teams, but you don't want to publish that to all of your users because all of your users are not really using that finance application. So you should really think about what kind of apps to publish the Teams on different roles and different groups. First line workers, you cannot skip the first line workers because they are mostly using the mobile app. So you really need to focus on what apps they really need to support their work, not having anything unnecessary apps available on their mobile app. Controlling voice and calling features, for example, caller IDs, enabling calling, stuff like that. I'm not really an expert on voice and callings, but that is actually one possibility which you should use there. So, and one huge thing, I think this was mentioned already in the previous session, and I think there will be more of this in the next session, is the anonymous access, for example, to meetings. Are you sharing anonymous links? How guests are working? Can they request, for example, control on meetings and all the external settings? Those are really important. All of that is not actually covered in actual Teams policies, but I would say that this is so important topic that you need to speak this on every close to management session, which relates to Microsoft Teams. So what kind of policies there are? So Teams policies, which are mostly controlling the private channel creation. Of course, there's a setting for limiting out the organization-wide team creation, but it's anyway limited to admin users, so I wouldn't actually use that so much in policies. Then there are the meeting policies, how content is shared. You need to think about that. For example, can users share their whole screen or just an app or just a PowerPoint? Because, for example, in compliance sake, there might be issues if they accidentally share their wrong screen or even a wrong app. So you need to think about those. Live event policies to control live events. Who can actually create live events? Who can schedule them? Can the organization have public live events and that kind of stuff? Messaging policies for controlling messaging, edit messages, deleting messages, GIFs, all the fun stuff, GIF ratings, and those kind of things. Priority messages are also included in the messaging policies. So if your organization is using those, maybe it's also good to have a guidance first how to use those, because they might be quite annoying if all the chat messages are actually urgent messages. App policies, there's actually two app policies. So there is an app permission policy, which is more about the controlling which apps are published to your users. I have a slide and demo about that later. And the app setup policy, which is for controlling the left trail, installing apps to users, and those kind of things. And then the calling and voice policies, different types for controlling the calling and voice features, emergency policies, and stuff like that. And organization-wide settings are not actually a Teams policy, but it's an organization-wide setting, and those I have a brief information about those as well in the session. Policy management. So most of the features are already available on Teams Admin Center. So you go there, create a policy, flip the switches, make your own policies. You can do the assignments in Teams Admin Center, but you still need to use Microsoft Teams PowerShell. For example, automating those assignments, doing batch assignments automatically, because picking the users in the UI is just not going to work for batch assignments. And Skype for Business online module, which is now included in recent version of Teams PowerShell module, but still you need to do the connection in the same way, and you got those all policy management commandlets there, but you don't need to install it separately, so you have all the functionality and connections in the same PowerShell module from now on. And Teams, when the new features are actually landing, they are not going to be available on Teams Admin Center right away, so you need to use PowerShell anyway to enable those, for example, enabling those features or disabling those features from your users. Let's first dive into organization-wide settings of Teams Admin Center. I would say this is important because all the time, at least I'm having discussion with customers about external access to Teams and guest access. They are totally mixed those terms together, and they actually don't know what is what. And if you are not familiar with these terms and are not an IT administrator, you don't actually know which is actually which term. So I will just clarify it here again. I think it will be clarified on the next session as well, which is good, I think. So external access is for the communication with other organizations and Skype consumer users. So you can have a chat, you can have a call with other organizations, and there is some limitations you can add. So you can allow Teams and disable Skype consumer and vice versa, basically. Then you can allow domains if you just want to communicate with certain domains, and that will block others, or the other way around, you can block domains you don't want to communicate with and allow other domains. So those are the options there. Then is the guest access. It's more about participating and collaborating inside Teams with documents, chats, having those meetings. So it's kind of you are participating already to the organization. External access is just communication in between. And you can control some of these guest features also with policies there. And I just raised up a couple of team settings which I think are important. So tagging. If you haven't heard about tagging, it's that you can create a group of people and add a tag to it and actually a team. I'm actually using it currently with my team. We actually have a one Teams team, which we have several teams because we don't want to spread the information around because we're working around same things. So we are just having a tag for each team, and you can easily notify a team with a tag. You can also control tags like who can create tags. Is there some suggestions, or do you have some kind of a formalized tags available which the teams can use then? Channel emails, can people send emails to channels? And the cloud files, of course, can you use other cloud file providers like Dropbox or Google, Ignite, or you should think about, are you going to allow those on your environment? Okay. Next thing, this is going to the policy. So policy assignment and precedence. So how the policies actually work. So as I mentioned a couple of slides before, there are meeting policy, Teams policy, but user can only have one policy per policy time applied. So basically, if you have 5 meeting policies, user can only have one of those applied based on how they are assigned. So if you look at the picture on the right, the directly assigned policy is always primary. So if there is a direct assignment, for example, per person using batch assignment, it's the primary policy which is applied. As you can see, the green kind of a check mark there. So now Johanna has the TeamFest policy applied, and those settings from the TeamFest meeting policy are actually applied to the user. Next thing are the group assignments, and I have a demo about group assignments a little bit later. So group assignments mean that you can assign a policy to a group, and all the group members have that policy applied. And now I have removed the directly assigned policy from Johanna, and now she has an organization only policy which is coming from certain group. And there is a rank between those policies. So if you create for example, 5 meeting policies, you need to rank them in order, and this ranks is actually working here as well. So organization only is the rank 1 policy, and NDI streaming enable is the second ranked meeting policy there. And as you can see, when the user is removed from that group which is assigned to that policy, then the second ranked policy will be applied to the user. And you can see this based on users and the admin center. I will show it a little bit later. And the baseline is the organization-wide policy. And when you're doing group assignments, there is already a group assignment tab on certain policies, so you can assign Teams policies, meeting and live event policies, messaging policies, and calling and call park policies already on Teams admin center via UI to groups. So I will just show it that later. Then rather new thing, there has been a lot of discussion. It has been there for some months, are the policy packages. So I think these are quite in the beginning of their journey. So policy package is just like a container of policies. For example, if we take the first one there, education, higher education student, it can be thought as a role, and it has several policies assigned to that role. And you can control those policies inside of it and then assign the policy package to the user. So I will show you this also briefly. Currently, it supports messaging, meeting, app setup, calling, and live event policy. So those can be applied to a policy package. And currently, there is only those predefined policy packages available, focusing on education, healthcare sector roles, and there is some small business and small businesses voice policy packages as well. And here you can see, for example, the first line worker policy package. So there is a first line worker messaging policy attached to it, meeting policy attached to it, and you can see the policies which are in use. And when you actually enable those kind of a default policies are also created to the policy management. So, and I can show that also briefly later. Custom policy packages are coming soon to private preview program, so we need to wait for those for a longer time. Batch assignment already works with Teams PowerShell, and group assignment is coming also soon there. One option to use group assignment as like a policy package, you could create a group of people, for example, a security group, and then assign with group assignments several policies to it, so that group actually acts as a container for those policies. But I see the policy packages ease up the management a little bit also there when they are available, and you can customize those. But let's jump into the environment for looking at the policies. So, okay, I just refresh because I have been having authentication issues today. Now it works. Good. So let's go first through how you can assign a policy to a user. So I will go here and take my meeting policies, and I have the Teams meeting custom policy here. So I will just pick that one, take that manage users, and I would like to add it to Johanna. As you can see, she has the organization only policy. So I will add now the Teams Fest policy to her. And it will take a little time to update. Another way around looking at the user policies, of course, checking out all the users you are in your environment, and we will pick the Johanna there. And there is a policies tab, and I can see all the policies here. So now we can see that we applied the Teams Fest meeting policy, and now it's the effective policy because it's directly assigned to Johanna. And if we click the details, we can see the structure of those policies to Johanna, how she will get based on assignment. So direct assignment now is in the active policy, and if that is removed, then the NDI streaming enabled policy from the group membership is actually applied to Johanna. And you can edit all the policies as well here. So you can just assign policies, click edit, and these are all direct assignments. So if I change, for example, the Teams policy to global and click apply, we should see that it actually, it didn't update yet. Okay. I added the, stupid of me, because if you add a global policy, it will be the last one to actually apply. So I need to change that. Sorry for the mess. I will, and yeah, I cannot apply that one because it's already applied from the group membership. So how about the group assignment then? Let's go back to our meeting policies, and we want to assign the organization only policy to group. So we take the group policy management tab there. And I have been creating 2 groups, but we want to change this, that pilot users actually want to have the organization only policy. And at the moment, there is actually no way to edit the assignment. So you really need to remove the assignment first. And as now you can see, the app pilot group assigned policy is actually ranked number 1, but I will add a new policy. So then pick a group, anything from Microsoft 365 groups, security group, distribution lists, and click add. And I will add a rank to 1. So this will be a first priority, and I will choose the policy here. So assignment means that you select the group, select the rank, and select the actual policy for this group assignment. And click apply. It should update there. And now this is the rank number 1. It automatically changes the rank for other policy assignments as well. And as you can see here, this is the Microsoft 365 group, but this is actually a security group. So both work. Okay, next is the batch assignment. I will just go to users, pick up everyone, and then edit settings. And I want to change the meeting policy for global, not global, let's take something else. Let's take Teams Fest for everyone and apply. So now it will change, directly assign Teams Fest policy to everyone I have selected in this list. So this is easy for me because I have something like 25 users. And this is the batch assignment is a long-running operation. So you can see it on the activity log. There's a link to the activity log in the notification bar, and this actually displays all the long-running operation, basically now batch processes, which I have done during 30 days, past 30 days. So as you can see, there is already, I have been adding a Teams meeting policy, Teams policy. We can check out what is happening here. So 3 errors, 25 completed. Let's just a little bit. Okay, so I have couple of errors here. I think this is some kind of a room equipment, and I think if we look at this in detail, this is actually my work account, which is a guest. So you can figure out the errors from the activity log. And as you can see now, this is actually in progress. So batch assigning meeting policy, it's not happening right away, so it takes some time to actually complete. So, but same thing is also with the group assigned policies. They will actually be applied right away, but when the actual group memberships are synced, so it will take some time. I would say take 1 to 2 hours and it will be complete. So not right away. Direct assignments work quite better now. And then if we go to the user view, again, let's see the user view just here about in the policy side. So you can see all the policies here quite easily, edit them, see the details of all the policies. And that is, and here you can also see the assigned policy packages. So I can do the policy package assignment here as well. So if I want this user to have a policy package for higher education student and apply it, so I can do that as well. And as you can see, some of these policies actually, which are in the policy package, already changed based on the policy package. So there is all these policies are actually available. But let's check out the policy packages. It can be found in the admin center as well. So these are pre-populated policy packages. So education sector, couple of first line worker manager, healthcare, public safety officer, and small and medium business policies. And if I go to the higher education student, I can see that there is a messaging policy. Close this one. And I can actually jump right into the messaging policy here and change the settings if I like to, for example, not deleting the messages. But you cannot change these links or predefined policies here. You can change the settings. So this is more of a focusing on these sectors. So probably not yet for general usage. And if in the meeting policies, or let's go to the messaging policies, there is actually this higher education student policy also. I can manage it this way around if I want to. So throughout the policy packages or directly with policies, they are actually added here. Yeah, let's jump back to the slides. There is a couple of also Teams PowerShell commands for group assignments. So basically same things are happening. You add a group ID, or if it's a Microsoft 365 group or distribution list, email address is fine. Also pick up the policy type. This is a Teams meeting policy now. Add a policy name, which is already in the Teams admin center, and then figure out the rank. For example, this will go to first. Same thing for removal. Which kind of policy type? What is the group ID? It will remove it. So basically group can have one assigned. And set CS group policy assignment command, which is used for changing, for example, the rank or the policy assigned to that team is coming later, so it's not available yet. And then the batch assignment commands are here. So new batch policy assignment operation, and for the identity you put a list of users in some format, policy type, policy name, and a rank. The rank shouldn't be there, sorry. That is a mistake on my slides, I need to fix that. And it will create an operation which I just displayed from the UI. And you can get all the operations as well to see the results and figure out the errors from PowerShell. Batch assignment now currently works for 5,000 users, so you need to batch your users to 5,000 sized batches if you want to use batch operation, and there is more than 5,000 users. Next, let's have a talk about the controlling and enabling apps. So first, there is of course organization-wide settings. So they affect organization-wide, and it means that if you do, for example, disable third-party apps on organization-wide settings, they will be disabled, and you cannot enable kind of those with any policies or in the app management. So it will be kind of a primary setting. And there is a second setting for allowing new apps by default. I think this is a good one if you want to control which are actually allowed to your app catalog. And then you can choose, of course, can your developers or users upload or use custom apps. I would prefer keep this on and maybe control it with a policy. And you can, of course, allow and block apps on the manage apps view. So basically going through all the apps and allow and block, and there will be available tenant-wide. But I would prefer going to the policy-based controls. So creating an app permission policy and allow apps organization is actually using there. And there is a couple of points of that, because when you are using a new app, it needs to have your identity on some level. So at least email address and a name. That's the most common case. There might be a requirement for some data. For example, if you're having a chat with a bot, the data needs to go somewhere. So that might be in a third-party hands. So in compliance sake, that can be an issue for an organization. Third thing are the licenses, because all the apps are not completely free. So you need to think about how you are going to license it for your users. And that also, of course, brings up costs. And fourth thing is still that those apps might have some permissions to your environment. For example, reading something through Graph API. So you need to control that. Of course, users cannot consent those permissions. For example, globally reading your groups or emails. That is not possible. You need admin consent for that. But that's why I think some kind of a process is needed to actually enable the app so you can do it properly and it starts working right away. And let's jump into the environment, back to the environment. So I will just go through the Teams app policies. So first, let's go to the managed apps and take the organization-wide settings which I mentioned. So organization-wide app settings. So now I have all the third-party apps are allowed. So basically, users can use any app from the Teams app catalog. All the new apps are actually allowed by default. And this is kind of funny because today, I will show it a little bit later. And also custom apps are allowed. So for example, a developer can publish an app and start testing it, or we can have an organization app published right away to Teams. So there is no control for that, or it's not disabled. Funny thing, I was just looking at this 3 to 4 hours ago, and it was stating me 755. So we had a new app in just a few hours. So this number will be increasing in the future, and that might be a problem. If you think about app management, this is the kind of the app catalog on Teams side. These are from the third-party apps and Microsoft apps and your organization which are available. And if you want to start blocking and allowing an app here, it will go like this. You need to pick everything. I don't know why this isn't working for me. So if I want to use this for controlling apps, you need to actually block everything. And here you can see if I pick an app, I can see what it does, what capability does it have. For example, this is working on a team. It's not a personal app. There's no certification, no mention for the permissions. Let's take a second app quickly. Command 365 projects. This is also for the team, and we see here actually this has some permissions. I'm not going into details clicking that button for a consent dialog, but for you to know that actually you need to consent some permissions. This is actually improving, and there should be quite soon a new UI here which give more and more details, and about the licensing and stuff like that is available. So it will definitely help out managing the apps. But I would go to the permission policies for controlling the apps. So, and I have already here a global default policy and Teams app pilot policy. And let's go to the Teams app pilot policy to check it out. So here I have been allowing all the Microsoft apps, which I think it's fine. I don't know are all those apps necessary for each user, but they can be there. And when they publish new apps, they will be automatically enabled. Then there are the third-party apps. So I would prefer going the way that allow specific apps and block others. So I can just, let's take, for example, Asana. Add Asana here. So now for my users in Teams, this Teams app policy can use Asana for my third-party apps. And I would say this is maybe a good way to do it. And the custom apps, I'm allowing all, but I could also allow just specific apps from my organization app store. Let's see, do I have anything here? Hey, I have a couple of tests. So Teams Presence app, I will add that as well as an allowed app there. And I would suggest that if you are looking into kind of a controlled way to test the apps and see what's actually useful to your organization, I would create some kind of a pilot group or a pilot policy group for different users to actually figure out what is what and how they are working. But there is also other possibilities, like here, if you can see that I can allow all specific apps, of course, block specific, allow others, then block all. And I wouldn't go that block all route because there are so much useful apps around and organizations work differently. So definitely look through those apps. Okay, next thing, setup policies. So setup policies is the thing to control the left rail. So I will go to the global policy, which I have here. And as you can see, I have disabled uploading custom apps for these members of this global policy, but pinning is allowed. So you can control pinning with this. So users can pin other apps as well, which are allowed there. I have also pre-installed apps for users. So Poly is there and Asana is there. So those are now installed. And now I have also modified the pinned apps. So this is an admin way to control which apps are available and which order in your Teams left rail. As you can see, I have added Poly and a walkie-talkie here. And if we quickly look at the Teams client, let's do first and add that Asana there as well. Let's add Asana to the left rail. All right, now it's there and save. Of course, this will take some time to be affected. So I'm uploading this, and if you quickly notice, now I have Poly here. Walkie-talkie actually was there, but it's only working on mobile, so it will be removed. And there is actually a notification when you got new apps from the admin side to your users. And I would say this is good to use, for example, now in the coronavirus situation, that you could actually bring out your own COVID app or your information SharePoint site to your left rail so people can easily access it. And create policies based on roles, because, for example, first-line workers, I think they are not so interested about all the apps which, for example, finance people are interested in. So create those apps there. Yeah. let's just refresh the panel again. If you nope, it didn't apply it yet. Okay, so let's jump back to the slides. Next, so I have gathered some features here which are not currently available on Teams Admin Center, and I have a PowerShell script because I want to use, of course, demonstrate some PowerShell to get some nice demo effects, which are not available on Teams Admin Center. The opt-in setting or later on opt-out setting if you want to postpone the change of meeting recordings. This was announced on Ignite, so in the future, meeting recordings will be stored on SharePoint on OneDrive based on where the meeting is actually started. Next thing is the controlling the meeting attendance list. So if you want to enable that or disable that you can get the attendance list from throughout the meeting for your meeting organizers. Controlling background effects. If you want to limit out what background effects users can use, there is a possibility to have no effects at all, just a blur and defaults, and then everything user can actually figure out and think by themselves. And the priority messages, that is one control you can do only with PowerShell. So let's jump into my PowerShell window. Let's hope my actual session is alive. And first I'm going to run this line of code here. Let's see, I can see the session right away. Is it? And what it's actually doing, it's getting all my Teams meeting policies and looping them through and setting the recording storage mode as OneDrive for Business, which means that it will store the recordings on OneDrive or SharePoint. So there is two options or two values here. Stream is the stream and OneDrive for Business is OneDrive for Business. And now if you want to opt out, you need to actually change that one to stream. So, and there is a couple of errors because I cannot actually change the meeting policies, those couple of default meeting policies. So I will just run these to see the results. So basically global Teams Fest organization only, India streaming, education, higher education student. Those were set as OneDrive for Business, and those few default policies are actually set up to stream because I couldn't change those with the Teams meeting policy. Next one is to set up the attendee list, and I will add it to the global policy. So running this, so attribute is allow engagement report. There are different names for that same feature, and the value is enabled. So I will run this one. And let's just print out what is the situation in all of my policies. Okay, it's enabled in all of my policies already, but you can as well disable it as well. And when you get this one, it will be disabled on the global policy. Background effects. So again, it's a meeting policy. I will add it to global and I will put it to blur only. So running this. Other values are no filters for no filters, blur only for just a blur, blur and default backgrounds for using blur, and Microsoft predefined backgrounds, and all filters is then the value for applying all filters. And as you can see, oh, there's a bug in my script. I will just fix that quickly. And I can see that now those are actually blur only. I only now, but I have been setting those before this week. So those are. And finally, the priority messages. So I will disable those. Oh, okay, I got the demo effect. So I just took the wrong line of code. Okay, so you can see some differences that you probably enable, disable, might be a string, or it might be also a Boolean value, depending on the setting you are changing. So you need to be careful with those. And as you can see, priority messages are now disabled from global policy. And that was my demos. Some key takeaways. So I would suggest reviewing your organization's Teams policies, to going through what is there, how you're managing it, because a lot of customers I work with, I see that there is mostly just global policy. So anything personalization, controlling, enabling some apps are not there. So do the review. Also, I would advise always review the guest access and external settings. Of course, it needs more discussion. It's not just Teams. It needs to be how the SharePoint sharing works, how the OneDrive works, how the users are kind of invited to your Azure AD. Is there some anonymous sharing? So it's a big discussion. I would even keep it as a separate topic. Enable features and apps based on your business requirements and of course user requirements as well. So don't just restrict everything. Familiarize yourself with required tools. The admin center, go through it. PowerShell is extremely needed, so you need to learn PowerShell, but I see it's quite well documented as well, so you can actually see how it works. Just copy paste those lines, maybe trying it out on a dev environment to see the results, but it's kind of a straightforward. So those are quite simple operations. Follow up on new features, really important. New features are landing all the time, and when the new features land, they might be enabled or disabled. You need to know that, how your organization is going to use them. You need to kind of figure out it to your organization's policies and processes, how you can use those. Do you need to do some education for your users and stuff like that? And admin center is a quite good location. So if you haven't enabled the admin center's message center integration to Planner, please do and follow up those on Planner. It's quite easy and easy to set up, and you can get all the message center infos there, and there you can actually see examples and see good documentation already. So it's the place to follow up the new features. And the last, of course, communicate, educate your users with new features, Teams apps. There's a lot of things to do around this topic, so that's why we are actually having a separate track for adoption side. Going 2 minutes over. So hey, that was my session. So please rate my session. This is actually a first time I'm giving this session, so I would really appreciate having a feedback what I should cover in this session. There's more sessions to come still, and the last keynotes, which are really important at 1900 hours CET. And please share Teams First Lab on Twitter. And even if you have a feedback for me, you can actually ping me on Twitter or LinkedIn directly if you want. Thank you.